Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be building a dictionary. So we're going to be using an API that is going to get us the definitions of the words, and then we're going to display them on the screen. So for example, if I search for something, then you can see that we have in bigger fonts whatever word that we have typed in, and then we also have the audio pronunciations of the word. So if you listen here,
something,
there we go. So that is the audio of the word, the pronunciation of the word, I mean. It's nighttime, so my head is a bit slow. And then we also have multiple definitions of the word depending on whether it is a noun or a verb, whatever, depending on the part of speech. And then we also have examples. Let me check here. So we also have sentence examples, and then on the bottom we also have synonyms right there. And then you can also search for another one. So if you search for something like antonym, then we are going to get, it's going to be updated on the screen obviously, and then the definition of the particular word. And then even if you search for a big word like anti-disestablishmentarianism, then you can see that we have the entire word displayed, and then we also have the pronunciation of the word, and then the definition of the word as well. And then if you search for a word that does not exist, like the name of a country, then you just get a blank screen. And so we're going to be building all this out in React.js, and I'm going to be using Tailwind CSS just to start everything out because it's going to be faster. So let's go ahead and begin. And so the first thing that I've done is I have created a new React application using npx create react app. The command is right here. It is npx create react app, and then this is the name of my application. I've called it dictionary app YT, and then I've opened up Visual Studio Code into the newly created folder once this command is run by saying code dictionary app YT. And then what that does is that it is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code, and then you're going to see all your files and folders that are created when you create a new React application. So we have the app CSS, the app.js, and the app.js. We have the index CSS and all those other files. And as we begin, the first thing that I want to do is I want to delete a few files just to clean everything up. And so I'm going to delete the app CSS, the app.js, the logo, report, web vitals, and the setup tests. And then inside my index.js, I'm just going to remove this import because we have deleted this file. Remove this as well. And then inside my index CSS, I'm just going to remove everything. And then inside my app.js, I'm also going to remove everything. And then I'm going to say RFC. I have an extension which generates this for me, and it's just going to render app. And so the extension is called ES7. Where is it? It's called ES7 plus React Redux and React Native Snippets. And this is the extension that allows me to do RFC, and it generates this for me. It's just easier. You don't need to have it, but I do recommend that you have it because it will make programming with React.js that much easier. And so once we have that, then let's go ahead and open up our terminal because we want to go ahead and install Tailwind CSS. And if you go into the Tailwind CSS website, if you go into framework guides and scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're going to see create react app here, and then we're just going to follow these steps. So just copy this command and paste it here, and then also copy this command and let this run. And then once it runs, then you can paste in the second command, which is going to create our Tailwind config file right here. And then we're going to go ahead and copy this line. So copy, and then inside our Tailwind config file, we're just going to paste it inside here and then save it. And then we're going to copy these 3 lines and paste them inside our index CSS. So paste them on top. And then now we can run our server by saying npm run start. But before I do that, then I just want to specify the body to have a font family. So font family of Gale Sans. So this one right here. If you're on VS Code, then you can just type in Gale and it's going to give you this option, and then you can just say enter. So it just fills it in for you. But if you don't have VS Code or this is not working for you, then you can just pause the video and then just type in these fonts if you want to use this font, that is. And then we're going to save it, and then we're going to open up our terminal once again using Ctrl and J, and then we're just going to say npm run start, which is going to run our development server on localhost 3000 and ideally what we should see is app rendered on the screen. Now as that opens up, then let me also talk about the API that we're going to be using. It is a free dictionary API, so let me just get the proper link so that you can visit its website. Okay, it's not this one. Dictionary API. This should be it. There we go. So this is the API that we're going to be using, and you can see that the endpoint that we're going to be hitting is going to be this one, and then the ending part here is going to be dependent on the word that we are searching for. So for example, if you search for hello, which is the example that is given here, then the response that you're going to get back is an array of objects, and then you're going to have the word, the phonetic, and then the phonetics, which is the pronunciation, the audio, and so on and so forth, and then the origin, and then we're going to get the meanings, the part of speech, the definitions, and so on and so forth. And so basically this is the API that we're going to be consuming, and you can see that our React application is now running, and all we have on the screen is app. So I'm going to place this to the right by just dragging and dropping here, and then I'm going to place my code editor to the left, and then we can begin working on this. And I think I'm going to build out the UI first, and then we can work on how we're going to get our data. So inside here, let me return a section, and then inside this section, let's do this. Let's give this section a class name of max width large and mx of auto, and then let's also give it a padding all around of 5 just to push everything inwards. And then let's just return some text here so that we actually see what we are styling. And let me just say bg red 400 just so we see where everything is. And then once we have this, let's go ahead and render an h1 that is going to say dictionary, and then below this h1 we're going to create our form. So let's create a form here. It's not going to have an action, but it's going to have an on submit event. So on submit, and then this is going to call a function that is called handle submit, which we are going to create in a moment. But for now, we're just going to have an input here with a type of search, and then the name is going to say search, and the ID is going to say search as well. The placeholder is just going to say search for a word or search for the definition of a word, and then we're going to set it to required as well, so that you can't submit the form unless the input is filled in. And then let's just create this function so that we don't have any errors when we save it. So let's create a function here called handle submit, and then as a parameter we're going to pass in our synthetic event of e, and then we're going to say e.prevent default, meaning prevent the default behavior of the form reloading the page when you submit it. And so we can save this, and we should have something on the screen. And there we go. So we have our h1, and then we have our input here. And let me set autocomplete to off. So autocomplete equals to off. And the reason why I have this set to off is because I don't want the previous options that are filled inside the form to appear as a drop down. So you don't have to have this for you. And then once we have that, let's go ahead and begin to style this out. And let's style this h1. Let's give this h1 a class name of text-3xl and text slate 800. How does that look? Okay, let's say font bold, font dash bold, and margin bottom of 8 to push away from the input here. And then let's just say text dash center as well, center. And just so that I don't get confused, let's remove this bg of red here. Let's just remove the bg of red. Okay, so now our input is here. This is our input, so we just need to style it out. And so for the input, we're going to say this. We're going to give this a class name of padding on the y of 2 and padding on the x of 4. We don't need rounded edges because I only want a border on the bottom. So I'm going to say border bottom dash 2, and border color is going to be border blue dash, let's say 600. How does that look? That looks okay. Let's remove that outline. See this outline, this black outline? I don't want that. So let's say outline, outline dash none, And not, I've just realized I want that when we are not on the input, I want this to be lighter. So let me say BG blue 400. And then I'm going to say that when we focus on the input, then the border blue is going to be around 800. So let's take a look. Okay, my screen just got browner because I have night light turned on. So let me just turn it off. Yes, so I have night light turned on at 10 p.m. and it's already 10 p.m. currently. So I'm just turning it off. I mean, you won't really see the effect of the screen, but it's just a bit darker for me. That's the reason why. So once we have that, then you can see the input is working correctly. Let's add a transition here. You can just say transition, and it's going to apply a slight transition to it, barely visible. And then let's set the width here to full so that this is going to be a full width. There we go. So we have our input. Where is our placeholder text? Placeholder, this should have an E. And we are going to have that. And then, you know what, let's also make the text larger. So text large, or let me say text XL for small screens. And then for large screens, we're going to say text to XL just to make it a bit bigger. Let me see how it looks. Yeah, that should be fine. This is actually quite nice. And by the way, the reason why it's limited is because of the max width of large here. So I think it's a bit too small. So let me say max width 2XL. How big is that? I think we can work with that. That looks okay. So max width large. And then below this, we're going to have our submit button. So below the input, we're going to have a button with the type of submit that is going to say look up definition. And we're going to have it right here. And then we're going to style it out. So I'll give this a class name of BG blue, and type that's 600, and text white, and text large. How large is that? Too small. Let's say text XL. What did I use here? I used text XL. Okay. And then for large screens, let's say text to XL, so that this matches up with the input as well. And then we're going to give it a padding on the Y, padding Y of 3, and padding X of 4, with a rounded border with a very slight box shadow. Rounded has a D. There we go. And then let's say, you know what, let me just use a padding Y of 2. Yeah, that should be fine. And then let's say margin top of about 8 to push away from the input here. That's too much. Let's say 4. There we go. So margin top of 4, and then let's add a hover here. So when you hover over this, I want the BG to be blue of 800. And then I want a slight transition. So transition dash all with a duration of about 200. And then we're going to have that. There we go. That's looking fantastic. Okay, so now that we have that, then let's go ahead and get our state values, and then let's also work on how we're going to fetch our data. So right at the top, I'm going to say import. Oops, what's happening? Oh, okay. So right here, I'm going to say import use state and use effect. And you know what? I don't think we're going to need the use effect hook. I don't think. So let's have our use state here, and then let's create our state value. So I'm going to say const words and set words is equal to use state, and by default it's just going to be empty. And then we're going to have another state value called word, and set word is going to be equal to use state, and by default it's going to be an empty string. Now, just to explain something, the reason why I'm having two state values here is because when we get our data, when we're fetching our data, then I want to populate this one. And then the reason why I have this one to be an empty string is because once we search for a word, then I want to reinitialize this back to an empty string. So that's why I have this one. Now, I did try it out to use one state value, but it did not work. So that's why I have two state values here. So now let's go ahead and do this. We want to fetch our data. So what we want to do is we need to turn this input into a controlled input, which is controlled by React. So below this, we're going to set the value of the input here into word. And now notice we're setting it into word, which is an empty string, because this is the one that we want to populate every single time that we're typing. So the value is going to be word, and then we're going to have an onChange handler on it. Change, and then we're going to pass in our E, and then we're going to say set word into e dot target dot value. And what that will do is that every time that we type it inside here, then it's going to populate our state value, meaning it is no longer going to be an empty string, but it is going to be filled in with whatever word that we are typing in. So we're going to save that, and now nothing's going to change in our application really, but you can see that this is what happens. And so once we have our state values, then let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to fetch our data. So the logic behind this is that we want to fetch our data when we submit the form and not on every single keystroke on the input. So how we're going to do that therefore is we're going to fetch our data inside the handle submit function of the form, so that the function is only going to be run when we submit the form. So let's go ahead and create our function here, and we're going to call our function get definition. So const get definition, and this is going to be an asynchronous function. And then we're going to say const response. So the response that we get back is equal to await fetch, and then we're going to be getting this link in a moment. And then const data is equal to await response dot JSON. And then I'm going to say set words into data. So now notice this, set words now this state value, meaning we are now populating this state value and not this one. So set words into data, and then below this we're going to call a function called get definition, like so. Okay, let me see, what is this? Definition has an I. Okay, so get definition, and then you know what, let me also console log the data. So console.log the data, and then what we want to happen here is that once this function is run, then we want to clear the input, and the input is dependent on the state value. So what we can do here is we can go below this and say set word into back to an empty string, really, like so, so that every time that this function is run, meaning every time that we get a new definition, meaning every time that we search for a new word, then the input is going to be cleared as well. So let's go ahead and save this. And then because we have a console log here, I'm just going to open up my terminal. So inspect, so that we see what we have in the console. Let me make this bigger. And then we're going to say search for something. And it says, oh, wait a minute. We don't have our fetch, sorry for that. So the API that we're going to be using is this one. So just copy this part, and then we're going to paste it inside here, inside some backticks. And then remember how this needs to be dynamic depending on every input that we type in. So we're going to place in our $sign and curly brackets, and then we're going to set it equal to our word state value. So word, meaning it's going to be dependent on what we type inside the input. So let's save this, and then let's try it again. So here, let's search for something, and we should have something in the console. There we go. So in the console we have one item here. It is an array, and we can see that we have a number of items inside here. So we have the license, the meaning, the phonetic, and then the phonetics, and then the source URLs, and then the word that we've searched for, which is something. So now we need to figure out how we're going to get this from here and then display it on the screen. So the first thing that we're going to do obviously is, now look at this. Notice how when we search for a word, we get an array, and it's like it has an index of 0, right? Meaning, look at this. Let me just show you something. If I console log data of 0, that is where we're going to be console logging the actual data of the word that we have searched for. So if I search for something once again, then now look at what we get back. Now we get the actual data of the word that we've searched for. Inside here we get an array, but here we get the actual word that we want. So here, instead of saying set words into data, because it's going to be an issue, we're going to say set words into data 0, meaning whatever word that we search for. And then now look at this. We can go, let me go below this form that ends here, and below this form we're going to say this. I'm going to say render, let me render a div, and then inside this div let's render an h2 that says what is it? It says words. So here it should say words.word. So we can say words dot word, and then we should have something here if it shows up anytime today. Let's check. So something is not working correctly. Words dot word. Let's reload. And then okay, so it says cannot read properties undefined of reading word. Okay, so the reason why this happens is because this is executing before this can execute. So what we're going to do therefore is we're going to grab this div and cut it out and place it inside some curly brackets and say that only when words, what is the state value? Only when this is true, meaning only when this has been populated do we want this div to show up. So we can say only when words is true do we want our div to show up. I think that should fix it. Let's check it out. Let's say something, and there we go. So we have something here, and then we also have our data. Let's reload it just to make sure that nothing breaks. Reloading. Okay, let's say something, and there we go. So you can see that now we have our word, and then we are also console logging the correct thing. Now once we have that, then what we're going to do is this. Let's style this out. Let's go inside this div, give this a class name of margin top of 20, push it downwards massively. There we go. Inside this h2, let's give this a class name of capitalize, so that the first letter here is going to be capitalized, and then let's say text slate 700, and then font bold, and then text 5XL. So that we're going to have this as the text. Nice. And then once we have this h2, then what we want to render beside it is the phonetic of it. So this phonetic. So how we're going to do that is we're just going to place this inside a span, and then we're going to say words dot phonetic, and it should appear here. There we go. And then we want to style this differently so that it is smaller. So give this a class name of text dash base, meaning the normal 16 pixel font. There we go. Okay, that is a bit too small. Let's just say text XL. There we go. And then let's say text slate of about 400, so that it is just a bit lighter for the phonetics. Is that a good idea? Let me say 500. And then let's go ahead and make this span an inline block, inline dash block. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to add a margin on the left so that it pushes just a bit away from the word. So I'm going to say inline block. Okay, then I'm going to say margin left of about, let's say 4, to push away just a bit from this word. And then once we have that, then below this we want to render these phonetics. So the phonetics are going to be the text and then the audio, meaning the phonetic pronunciation and then the audio. But notice that some of them don't have the actual audio and only some have the audios here. So for the ones that don't have the audio, it's just going to render the audio control panel, but you're not going to be able to play the audio. And so how we're going to do that is this. Notice that phonetics is an array of 3 items. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go below this h2, and then I'm just going to render a UL because it's going to be easier. And then inside this UL, I'm going to say words.phonetics. Phonetics, meaning I'm now accessing the words.phonetics here. And then we're going to map over this. And then let me just say for every phonetic that we get back, then we are going to render out a list item with a key. And you know what, list item is probably not a good idea. I should probably render react.fragment. And the reason why I'm rendering react.fragment is because we're going to be returning some text and then the audio. So I don't want to render all that inside a list item. Our react.fragment is going to work better. And then this is going to have a key of index, which we should probably get from here so that we don't get any errors. So phonetic at index. And then inside here now, we're going to render out our list item. So the list item, and the list item here is just going to say phonetic dot text, meaning it's going to get this text here. And then below this li, we're going to render an audio. So audio is going to have the controls, meaning the volume controls and the what is called the seek and everything. And then inside here, we're going to have our source, and the source for this is going to be src is equal to phonetic dot audio. That should be correct, phonetic dot audio. Okay, so save this and let's see what we have on the screen. And there we go. So you can see that these first two correspond to these first two, and they don't have any audio. So since they don't have any audio, then you can see that it is grayed out. But for the one that has an audio, then you can listen to it.
Something.
And you can listen to that audio. Okay. Okay, you know what? I've just realized something. Let me check if my OBS is actually able to capture this. Okay, so it was capturing it. I usually don't turn it on, so I'm glad that I remembered to turn it on. Now let's style this out to look a bit cooler. So let's give this a class name of margin top of 8 to push away from this text here. And then let's go inside this list item, give this a class name of about font bold. And you know what, I want it to be the same style as this. So let's just copy this and paste them here. And then we don't need this inline block here because the list item is already a block element. And we'll have that, and then we want to make this font bold. So font dash bold, that should do it. Okay, probably not the best idea, because now I need this to separate out just a bit. So let me go inside this UL. Let's give this a class of flex and flex column, and then give it a gap of about 4. That should separate them out. Yeah, that works fine. That works fine. And then below this, now we can begin to render the meanings. So each of these meanings, notice how now meanings is also an array of 5 items. So how would you do that? We're just going to go below this UL. We're going to create another div. And then inside this div, we're going to say words.meanings.map because it is an array. And then let's say that for every meaning that we get back, then we also want to get back the index, which is going to be our unique key. And then inside here, let's just render a div again. And then this div, close it out. Okay, you know what? Because I rendered react.fragment here, let's just keep it a bit uniform. And let me also render react.fragment. And then inside here, this is going to have a key of index. And then below this, let's go ahead and render, you know what? Let me see. The meanings. Okay, you know what? Okay, you know what? Instead of rendering a div here, let's render an ordered list so that the meanings are numbered, are in numbered form. So here, let's go ahead and render a list item with the. We don't need a key. Come on. I'm thinking a bit slow today. So meaning dot. Let's say we want the meaning dot definitions. No, the meaning dot part of speech. Meaning dot part of speech. Let's see what renders on the screen. Noun, verb. Okay, that's looking okay. And then let's style this out. So give this a class name. Oh, you know what? It should have the same class names as this one. So we can just copy this. Copy this and paste it here. We don't need this margin left of 4. And I've just realized that even here we don't need the margin left of 4. So let's remove it. And then once we have the parts of speech, then we need to go ahead and also get the definitions. Now look at this. Definitions is also an array. So definitions is an array inside the array called meanings. So in order to get the definitions, then we're going to go below this. And let me see, should we go below this? Probably so. So we're going to go below this. We're going to create a fragment here. Okay, and then we're going to say, let's say, what is it? Meaning. So meaning now this one, right? Meaning dot map. And then let me just say that for every def that we get back, meaning for every definition. Wait a minute, this is not correct. Meaning dot definitions, because the definitions here is the one that we want to, the definitions array is the one that we want to go into. So meaning dot definitions dot map. Then for every definition, we want to also get back the index. And then we're going to render out, let me see, a list item with the key of index. And then inside here, we're just going to render the definition, the def dot definition. Okay, and then let's save this. Let's see what we have. So for the noun part, we have these three definitions, and then the verb, and so on and so forth. And then now what we need to do is we need this to have a list style. So let me say, how do you do it? List start is equal to 1. The reason why it doesn't have a list style is because we are using Tailwind. So Tailwind has reset some of those styles. So let me see. Give this a class name of list decimal. List decimal should be the one, should be the class, is it? Okay. So notice how this is a problem. And the reason why it is a problem is because it is counting this and this to be like separate items. So ideally it means if we should bring this upwards, then it should fix it. Okay, it doesn't fix it. So let's see what is the logic behind this. The logic behind this is that if the OL is here and it starts at 1 here, which means I can remove this from here, it should remove the numbering. But then if I add it here in the React.fragment and then give this a class name of list decimal, then it should be correct. No. Okay, now if I grab this and push it here, then that should fix it. Why don't you fix it? That is so annoying. And I can't remember how I did it in the first place. Anyway, it is prone to changes. So let me change this back to React.fragment. So React.fragment, and then change this as well to React.fragment. Okay, there we go. And that should reset. Okay. But what is, or is it because of the fragment here, by the way? Could it be because of the fragment? Because React.fragment behaves certain ways. I know about that. So let's try it again. Though this is not even going to work. What am I even doing? I've just realized that it's not even going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. So let's have it like this, and then let's go ahead and style out this part. So let's style out these definitions, and you know what, let's go inside this list item here, give this a class name of, let's say, text large, make it bigger. Let's say text XL, make it even bigger. Let's say text dash slate dash 600. That's not a good color, you know what? That is not really a good color. Let's go ahead and give this a style object. So style equals to this, and then set the color to #333. That is a much better color for me. Let's use that. So #333, and then what we're going to do is right here we're going to say that for large screens, and the text is going to be XL, meaning make it big for large screens, make the text bigger for large screens. Or not? What? Text X, oh wait, it's already text XL here. Okay, so text to XL, yeah, make it bigger for large screens, and we're going to have that. And then we're going to be inside this OL, and let me see, let's go inside here. Let's give this a class name of about margin top of 6 to separate everything out here. I mean, to push away from this. And if it is a margin top of 6 here, then let's also add, instead of having margin top, let's add margin Y of 10. So push away from here, and then also add a margin on the bottom here. And then inside each of these, let me try something. Let me say flex here. What happens? That happens. And if I say flex column, then they should go back on top of one another. There we go. And then let's add a gap of 8 to separate them out. Okay, that is not what I wanted. That is not what I wanted. So I want this part to be separated from this part. So depending on the part of speech, I want each one of them to be separated, which means that because I can't add class names to React.fragment, then we're going to change this to be a div, so that I can go inside this div and give this wait a minute, isn't that the same solution, by the way? Margin top of 10 of 8. Okay, there we go. That is what I wanted. So margin top of 8, and then inside each of these list items, not this one but these ones, then we're going to say margin top of about, let's say 3, to separate out the meanings just a bit. There we go. That's looking nice. That is looking nice. Okay. And so once we have that, then let's go ahead and we need to get the synonyms. So for the synonyms, we're just going to go back into our console and then, oops, where is it? Let's go ahead and search again. So something, and we should have this. We should go inside meanings and then part of speech, and then synonyms is inside here. And then once again, synonyms is an array. So how do we do that? We just go below this. So below this UL. So once again, we're going to go right below this. Okay, let me separate this out because it's a bit hard to see. So below this, and let me grab this and place it inside a fragment so that it becomes a bit easier to see. And then let's also add another fragment here where we're going to say this. We're going to say meaning dot synonyms dot map. And then for every synonym, let me just say syn. Let's also get the index. Then we're going to say return a list item with the key of index. And then let's also say syn. Wait a minute, that is exactly it. So syn. And we should have a synonym somewhere here. So here are our synonyms. Now I want our synonyms to be aligned as a flexbox. So instead of having a fragment here, wait, it's here. Then let's return a UL, and then let's give this UL a class name of flex and item center and justify start and flex wrap, and flex wrap so that in case they reach the end, in case a word has many synonyms and they reach the end of the device, then they automatically go into the next line. And then let's also add a gap of 4 to separate them out just a bit. And then for each of these list items, let's style them out to have a gray background. So BG/200, and then padding Y of 2, and then padding X of 3, and rounded in the slide box shadow, and then text dash small to make the text small, text dash small. And we're going to have that. And then above this, you know what, let me say margin top of about 4 to add a space here. And there we go. So those are our synonyms. And then let me see, what else do we need to do here? And so we need to add our examples. So the example sentences. So for the example sentences, we are going to go once again inside this object, and it should be inside the meanings and the part of speech. And then where is it? Definitions, and then definition here. Where's the example? I can't find the example. Where is the example? These are the antonyms, definition, Where's the example? Come on. Okay, so the example is here. So inside the definitions, and then we just need to get the example. So that is as easy as going back here, and then we're just going to go below this this list item, probably render another fragment, and I'm getting tired of rendering fragments. And then we can render the definition dot example. That should be it. Let me see. Where's the example? So the example is here. See how it looks? Quite terrible. So what you can do is we can render a small text here, which is going to make it smaller. And then we can style out this small text to have a text of large or of XL. Let me say large, and then for large screen, then we're going to say text dash XL. Okay, and then we're going to make this a block element so that it goes on the next line. There we go. And then we're going to add a text here that says example, and then it's going to say example here and then here. And then notice how it renders example for everything, even for the ones that don't have examples. So what we're going to do is, let me see if it's going to work. I'm going to cut this out and say that only when definition.example is true, that's when I want the small tag to render, and this should disappear. There we go. So now it doesn't appear everywhere, it only appears where there's an example. So that is looking quite nice. The only problem that I have with this is that the numbers were rendering a bit off. They were rendering a bit off, and I can't figure out why. Probably if it were in the morning I would, but it is now currently about 10:45 p.m. and I can't think of anything. So let's search for something like promiscuous, and it updates here, and then the audio is here, and then it is an adjective, and these are the meanings with the examples. Okay, let's make this example lighter so that it stands out to be an example. So here, let's make the text slate 300. Okay, not visible, 400. Yeah, that should be fine. That should be fine if I do say so myself. And you can see that the synonyms here is going to say motley. I don't know what that is. Okay, so there we go. So that is our dictionary. And then now what you need to do is just deploy it to Netlify and also host the code on GitHub. And then change this title. Let me begin by changing the title here. So change the title. Let me say dictionary and save it. And then you can close all of this down. And then you can shut down our server. And then let's go ahead into GitHub here. And then let's log into Netlify here. And then we can deploy this. We can close this, we can close this and this as well. So inside Netlify, let me log in. I think it's already logged in. Let's create a new repository. So create a new repository. And I'm going to call this dictionary-app-yt. App-yt. There we go. So create repository. And then we're going to copy this link. And then let me just say git add all. And then git commit. I'm going to say dictionary in React.js. And then I'm going to say git push. Oops, I should say git remote add origin, and then add in the link to a remote repository, and then git push. Okay, my head is a bit full. I apologize. So we should say git push -u origin main. There we go. And then let's log into Netlify. Let's add a new site from an existing project from GitHub. And then let's see, that is done. And then you can close this. And then let's search for, what is this? It's called dictionary app. So dictionary -app. So dictionary app YT, we want this one. And then we're just going to go ahead and say deploy site. These settings are correct. So deploy site. Deploying. And then let's change the site name here. So change site name. Let me say TSP Sankara dictionary app YT. There we go. Okay, and then we're just going to wait for a few moments so that this finishes deploying, and then we're going to be able to see our application. And you can see that our site is now live. So you can take a look at this link and we should be able to see it. And there we go. So we have our dictionary. So search for the definition of a word. Let's search for thing, and we should see that there we go. So we have the definition here. We also have the, whatever it's called, the thing, what is this, the audio control panel, and so on and so forth. And so that is a very easy way to build a dictionary using an API and also using React.js. And you can search for something else here and you're still going to get the correct definitions with the phonetics. And now I've just remembered to mention something. Listen to this.
Thing.
It says
Thing.
But we are searching for
else.
Exactly. So the reason why it does that, I have no idea. But for some reason, the first audio that plays the audio of the previous word that you are searching for. So for example, if I search for bramble here and I listen to this,
thing,
it's still showing me the audio of the first thing that I searched for, and I still haven't figured out why it does that, but for some reason it does that. And so if you figure it out, then please leave a comment on the video, or you can go ahead into my Discord channel. You can find me there as well. Or if you don't want to join the Discord channel, then you can find me over on Twitter. And so that is going to be the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. So please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video.